Why are we here? The simplest aspect of why we are here is to have a home. Our spirit needs a home. And then we are here to experience this home. And we have to train the home to allow our spirit to come through. With this, it is the most complicated process that happens. It is either a heavenly experience or an enslaved experience. To be enslaved by a being that is primal is not a fun, enjoyable process whatsoever. It will feel like deadness. It will feel like being disconnected. And that's if you decide to allow your human to be the controller of your spirit. Your spirit won't have it, but it will have to comply because your spirit made itself vulnerable to this process. Because in order to have this home, your spirit has to become one with it. So when we train our children to forget themselves, we've literally made a whole earth that is a terrible experience and a horrible place to incarnate. Souls don't even want to come back to earth as it has been previously because it's such a bad experience. The soul would rather go to another system. And you hear it a lot. A lot of people are like, I don't want to be here again because it's been that way. And then the problem is a lot of souls have made agreements to serve the earth, but then they were captured by these agreements were captured by other things. It gets really complicated really quickly. But the thing is, being a human is meant to be an experience that is so beautiful and so magical and so wonderful. We just have to get into our bodies as a soul and let the body be the secondary and the body be the first and the last. It is the first thing that we desire from, and it must be the checklist at the end to say, did we take care of our body good enough in the process of desiring our soul's mission? And then did we find the correct balance? It is extremely important that we learn how to mold our physical life to the soul that we are, and we're all very different souls. And this is why I continuously say DNA is pretty much void when it comes to expression of oneself. The thing is, the human existence tends to follow grid works and patterns that have worked. It's like picking up a system that everybody uses and it works. It's like, okay, these are the colors and these are the colors of the rainbow. So, when I say the colors of the rainbow, you think maybe Skittles. You think this nasty new programming towards people that are of the same sex. Maybe you're stubborn and you want to remember the original happy programming about rainbows are a promise and rainbows bring great and beautiful and wonderful things. But here's the thing. Anytime we get something beautiful and wonderful on this earth, there has been, and it's just an aspect of perversion. Anytime something beautiful comes along and somebody else wants to come in and take over that, they reprogram it in the younger generations. So what happens is something beautiful is no longer beautiful. You take the beauty out of it and you just plaster idiocy onto it. And then the future generations can no longer live off of the beauty of the old. Now, I'm not just saying that perversion is within the new modern ways. It has been this way for a very long time. That when something good comes through, it's like people cycle through it and then they get creative and they think that they can do what they want and that they're bigger than the original creation. And then they create something and they're very persuasive people because they're looking for something in life. And so when they become persuasive, then they get a whole group of people to believe that thing. Now it's a grid that you can attach to. And naturally, our minds want to attach to grids because it is a simpler way. You just attach to the grid and the whole thought process makes sense because somebody created it, right? It's a thought process that has been super analyzed and then coded, and when you believe that particular coded system, it's easier for you. You don't have to build the bricks of your own house by sourcing the sand and sourcing the different things that keep it together and the cement mix and the block maker and all of these things. You can just download a block. You can go and read a definition for something and go, yeah, that works. And the thing is, we like to download blocks that many people have access to so that we don't have to explain ourselves and have the possibility of being wrong. So a lot of people who are originally creators don't want to be creators because they would have to explain themselves. Think about the vulnerability after you've created something you are so proud of. The first time you create something, it's so vulnerable and you're looking at that person like, see, look, I did such a good job. Now this might be the essay you just wrote. This might be the presentation that you just made. It's your first draft. You're still vulnerable. You're not quite sure. Did I do a good job? It's the painting that you made. It's the jewelry that you created. It's the new fashion design. Whatever the new thing you created. Could be anything. The first version of it, once it comes out, you are so like, If you're a true creator, you've learned you never tell anybody at this point. You don't tell anybody about it until it's solidified. But most human beings don't have that ability. They get so excited about it, they want to tell somebody right now. They want to show somebody right now, oh, I just came up with this great idea. And they're just blah, blah, blah. And these are the people that we would consider have less than in life. Because the thing is, they've never solidified anything. They always need someone else to tell them. And so what happens is as soon as you give somebody this beautiful new blueprint that you've made that isn't fully formed into material matter in the other realms, right? It's a framework that hasn't been, duplicated enough times that it's a solid. It's just one framework. So what happens is when you bring somebody else in now with their actualization abilities, if they fully agreed with you 100% and you knew that, it would solidify that framework instantaneously. And it's most very beautiful, valuable thing. And this is why when two people become one, when I say two people become one, it's not a physical sexual matter alone anymore because people have gotten so exploratory. I'm talking about female and male getting together in a healthy, trusting, vulnerable sense. Okay, two people that technically have never been touched. They don't know what it's like. They're both exploring something kind of scary together. It's this experience, whether it's good or bad. They bond over this experience. There's no expectations because nobody's done these things before. It's this beautiful expression of creation. And that's the way all creation is supposed to be. But it's not, because everybody's got different levels of thought, different levels of judgment, different levels of experience. So this is why we've become solo creators instead of dual creators, because most people aren't willing to look at you with childlike eyes and accept every part of you as it is and help you build that framework. They sit there and they'll accept this and judge that. So when they judge it, they put their own framework in that. So you now, instead of getting a framework that is filled with, beautiful, fresh ideas to create framework, to create a block pattern, you now get this thing that's half created and half previous judgments, which is not an actual creation. It is like holes in the blueprint, because judgments on things create the old pattern of things. And because it doesn't match up, it's no longer a grid. It's a grid with like missing pieces, because the judgment comes from a different framework somewhere else that someone's trying to jab into your thing. So, and then you've got pieces that are less, because the new stuff isn't as formatted as the frameworks, like the pre-made blocks of people that made grids somewhere else. So those are super strong because they've got tens of thousands of something and they stick that in there. And then this is only 2 people that have seen this. So this new creation has blocks of judgment from, say, Christianity, or say, the order of how things are quote unquote supposed to be in that class of behavior, whether you're upper class or you're lower class. It's interesting that people are always fighting each other. And the reason that people are always fighting each other is because as soon as you have a framework, you want to defend that framework. Right? This is why families of the same class now will become against each other, because the Harrisons and the Thompsons are 2 different people based on their last name. There's a different framework, there's a different energy carrying something. So even if they bake the same bread, one is a Thompson baked bread and one is a Harrison baked bread, right? So they're gonna differ slightly because there's a different oven, maybe there is a different brand of flour used, or whatever. You understand me? It's just the way life is, and people want to stop this, war. There will never be a stop to the war, but there will be a stop to how crazy people go over things and who's the better one. Like, how's about you are you, and that's great, and we are we, and we're not talking about this. You guys do it that way, and we do it this way. So go ahead, let it be, right? And if the guy on the left, the Harrisons, become super quadruple billionaires, and the Thompsons only become millionaires, the millionaires get mad at the billionaires because they did it their way, and they're mad that the other guys did it their way and they did better. This is, you literally can't do that. You thought that this way was the best way, so let it be. And if you don't like it, then this is where you learn to change things. But people want to look at each other and get mad at how they're expressing it. You have to understand that once you get there, that's your mind controlling your soul. You got so into the mind and the logics and the culture and the building blocks that other people created that you no longer remember anything about why you came here. And the reason that I took you on that story and that journey is because you felt your spirit actually get so into this war between those guys who made this and these guys who made this. I took you down the story and took you down this rabbit hole, so to say, of you getting really into it. You forgot we were talking about souls. And this is what has happened to majority of human beings. They forgot that they are a soul that came here to have a house instead of wandering around the galaxies. They came here to come and build something. And then they got incarnated into this place where these people that were bigger than them and this thing that they incarnated and became started telling them that they were no longer allowed to be themselves. They were no longer allowed to be the controller of this human being. And so what happens is they begin to be caged within their own existence. And then the human runs on pure programming. There's no creation energy that is available anymore because the creation energy comes from the soul, and the soul is connected to a higher framework and a higher set of values and deeper understandings of life that soul might not even be able to communicate properly with the human. But the more that your soul learns how to communicate with your human and in full acceptance, like if you think about you're in a language, you have somebody that speaks a completely different language in front of you. You soften. There's this opening inside of you because you're trying to understand each other. So you point at things like, you want something to drink, so you point at the pitcher and so then somebody decides to pour that into a glass, and then the other person shakes their hand, no, and they have their raised eyebrows and they pull back, and you realize they don't want you to pour it. So what do you want to do with the pitcher? So you're trying to have a communication. This is how you are as an adult trying to understand your soul. And you have all gotten into this place where you're looking to frameworks that somebody else built for their soul. And you're like, oh, I like the ankh. Oh, I like the little crisscrossy thing. Oh, I like this thing. And then you go to another culture and that's a satanic sign. And you're like, well, how can I win? This isn't good. Oh, those guys are the underdogs, so I'm going to join their team because I'm more with that. But none of those things are blockworks that even come close to communicating with your soul, because they're dirt beings and say you're a water being. Just for an example. So you're trying to fit their mold. And this is why my programming is so highly valuable, because my programming pulls down these logical frameworks and integrates your soul. It's like a translation program. And then parts of the aspect of what I do is everything has a bridge. Everything has a logical pathway for you to understand. So I help you experience your own personal translation. This is why what I do is more than masterful and more than genius, because I bring your soul into your genius to be understood easily. And this trust is built back again, because the most kindest, caringest, lovingest, most beautiful, compassionate, sweetest, softest, happiest part of you, You literally turned around with a beat stick and went, I hate you, you're no good, you don't let the other children like me, mother and father don't like me, or it's all your fault, and your physical being turned around and took the most pure part of you, and you just scolded yourself so much that your soul literally built a wall around it to protect you from you. And it's sitting there alone going, how do I even get out of this situation? And you're sitting there trapped in slavery within inside of your own body. When you came here to be in a house, and your human is your house. And some of you, your human got so dirty from the bad behaviors and the nasty things that you believe. The things that you watch are disgusting, and you've just learned that, haha, this is funny, or oh, that's nice, or oh, this gives me a urge or a burst of energy. Those things are so damaging to your soul. Your soul will not touch you, your soul, and that's the thing. And you're trying to be real people, and you're trying to be an upstanding, you can't be an upstanding citizen of this world without your soul. Many of you have decided dominance is the way. No, dominance is how you become only human, soulless. And a lot of people are, oh, well, you can't be soulless. You can be trapped within inside of your own human experience, and your soul has no communication with it. That's pretty bad. And then others have made contracts to drain your own soul of its greatest wealth for a few monetary physical things. So another being is literally draining some of you of every great thing that it is. And your soul can do nothing about it because you willfully agreed to hook yourself up to a dead person machine, so to say. Because you refuse to connect your human to your soul and get that juice for yourself. So you look at everybody else and see who you can, take this from or get that from or do this from or blah, 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 blah. Somebody help me get wealth. And somebody looks at you who understands, like I understand. In some ways, they're not as deep as I am, or they wouldn't be doing what they're doing. But they look at you and they know. They know you have a soul. And they're like, okay, no problem. You give me access, in other terms, to your greatest wealth, to your most vulnerable, beautiful creation, which is your soul. You give me access to that, and I'll pay you. I'll pay you some money. And this person is the biggest snake oil salesman in the whole world. You give nobody ever access to your soul. And I'm telling you, that is the God of all creation. That is who I am. It's who I am fully in access with and are as this human existence. I became vulnerable to the God of the all creation, and it is me as I am it. The same as your human is your soul until you separate yourself. The same way salt water is a thing. It's not just water and a heap of salt. They've become one. They are a new substance that does new things. I am a new being. I am not the one that was born here just as a soul with a house. I made many, 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 many steps and many, 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 many transitions. And the tools that are required to do this take many, many lifetimes to do. So I'm telling you that you came here for a house and now your house is poisoning you, majority of you. And some of you are these high-powered people who love dominance and entrapment. But this is what you have done to yourself. Your soul is inside, bawling and crying, and you've turned a blind ear to yourself. And only you can get yourself out. But you don't believe you even exist anymore because you've put up the walls, because you tormented yourself. Those walls they're so thick. There's a part of you that's like, what do you mean? Who is this person? Because you are stuck with the logical blueprints. You're in the framework. You are only in the framework. You are not living as a being. You are living as a human. It's both. It's human, which is luminescent, human, and then being. That's the soul. That's the being. That's what makes you you. That's what makes you different. That's what makes you have a vibe. That's what makes you feel things you cannot see. How do you attach to that again? How do you communicate with that? You were literally meant to come here to have a house and enjoy things like touching dirt and finding soil and building things and connecting with yourself so much that you can connect with another person who is also connected with themselves. But now the majority of souls are trying to use their humans to connect to things just in a mere essence of thirstiness. People's souls are so dying for connection that they're willing to do the most for the least. And you can't. You have to connect with yourself first and foremost. Find that communication method with your soul, not with your mind. Because if you are only connected to your mind and your body, you are the one enslaving yourself. And a lot of times, the longer you do this, it will manifest into reality. If not in this life, in the next life. In order to get you out of it, because it's so terrible. Your soul is literally stuck in a place that it cannot get out of until you perish. And your human is built with all of the stops to keep it alive as long as possible. Miserable, happy, sad, glad, it doesn't matter. It just wants to live. So you have to really dive deep inside of yourself and understand that you are these both, but they are supposed to be one, and they both exist. And the soul is more powerful because once you shed this physical existence, it will create a program for you to realize. Your soul is so determined to continue enjoying having a home instead of just being a wandering thing going through the galaxies. It wants to have a home. That's why it's here to be human. It's safer. It's meant to be safer, even though the human system has been hacked, and I'm providing secure ways for you to gain back that security. I go into the realms continuously to mitigate these ways that the human system gets hacked. And I continuously am on it. This is a part of creating a possible and formidable evolution for humanity, because humans can't continue to exist and have souls coming through them if they continue to get hacked like this, because souls have gotten to the place where a lot of them are just ready to give up because like there's this particular species cannot be inhabited anymore because it's just slavery inside these human beings. It's no longer a home. It's terrible. The soul learns. And so if we truly want to create a species that is able to incarnate without all of these systems of hacking, we have to create better ways of living. And that includes many different things that I speak about. So in order for us to continue being able to incarnate into this species, we have to make it better for everyone so we can make it better for ourselves. Otherwise, another species has to be created somewhere else, and then you start from square one. Think about Nethandrials. You think about going back into the most simple ways, trying to create fire, trying to understand. You have to start building a brain framework and everything from the beginning. So why would we do that when we have a species that's at an advanced tipping point? I have the availability for you to understand and know these things. And once you get the codes and the framework, you can spread the codes and the framework effectively. But you have to go through the process so that you can truly connect with your own soul and make it a viable place for you to live, and then allow this whole process to come through. Because it is a beautiful experience when it's done correctly. And I know this because I've been in many different versions of what a human lives is reality. Most people only live a different reality every 7 or 8 or so years. That's just the thing. And some people only live 2 or 3 different realities in their whole life. They get stuck as a teenager and they just keep going, or as a child. So you have to understand something. I am an expert in many different things in order to do this. It is not just geniusness in the mind, but within the soul. There's an aspect of learning. It's a language that the soul doesn't understand. The soul does not understand how the brain works and why the brain needs certain things that it does. But there's a whole framework system that I've created to connect those two appropriately. Now, there has been these frameworks done before, but those systems were hacked because they didn't put enough correct limitations on the system. They didn't use the correct things, and it just got hacked. That's just the way that it is. So my rules are extremely strict when it comes to working with me, being with me, because it's something that is extremely valuable. It's you came here for a home. And many people ended up enslaving themselves. And then being hacked into that in slavery and making it torment instead of just regular slavery. And I don't want anyone to live like that. I don't. I've been there. I literally have been there. I remember the person that I was connected to telling me that I was so stupid to believe them, and that they were just going to use me and hurt me for everything that I had. And I remember being fully helpless because I had agreed to something at the time, and I just had to get through it until I got to a place where I could just be myself again, and I got through what I got through and I got out of those things. But our desire for connection is truly the desire of connection with ourselves. And sometimes we're numb to that if we have it. And sometimes we're really longing for ourselves. We don't know where to find ourselves. That's easy for me now. It took me many, many years to understand what that looked like and how that is formed and how do you create this connection and this language that the both of you can speak well. Because your soul is a very different language and it operates very differently than the mind. The mind has past, present, future. The soul only has what's happening now. These are one of the biggest differences, right? You have to see that the connection needs to have a proper language between the two so that they get why the other does the other thing. You came here for a home. You came here for a safe place, and it hasn't been that. I can guarantee you that there is nobody that truly feels safe in their soul and in their human. And I know that because there is so much on this earth right now trying to take that if you are safe in this moment, it's still this thing that you continue to work towards. And I know as well, because I'm the one that creates certain safety codes for a set of people. And it's something that I continuously do. It's not something that will ever end either. It's just something I've gotten used to. Understand and know you are so much more complicated than anything. And please, don't take a set framework and a set of beliefs unless you feel it within inside of you and it feels soft and it feels like I'm heard. I'm finally heard. I feel like I'm heard, like somebody actually heard me. That is what you want to believe. Because anything else is just feeding the mind. There are so much spirituality, there's so much religion. You feed your mind and it releases chemicals and you feel powerful. That is actually the lack of power. That is somebody else's something. Be very, very discerning in who you even listen to, because you're either feeding the power-hungry monster in your mind or you're feeding your soul that gives directives to your mind. And they're two very different lives.